Welcome to Energy Stew. This is Peter Roth, your host, and I'd like to ask you, when was the last homeopathic remedy that you took, or are you taking some now, or one, or a few? Who knows? But I'm sure a lot of the audience is interested in homeopathy, and that's why I've brought on a guest for the show who is a wonderful homeopath, not even more than that, because he's such a proponent of the whole industry. And I'm excited to talk with him. Dana Ullman, welcome to Energy Stew. I'm so glad you're here.
Pleasure, indeed, a pleasure.
And so we go, you know, you go way back. You've been a homeopath for a while. You even have an amazing website name because um, how many people would love to have the name of your website, right?
That's right, homeopathic.com. I'm the right person to have it. So
Oh, good. I
blessings
believe it. And you're on the West Coast now,
in Berkeley, California.
right? But you've been to New York. You know a lot of the people I know in the New York area.
I used to
So
serve as the MC for the original Whole Life Expos, and I'd be the MC for the keynote speakers, whether that be
wow,
Dick Gregory or whoever it would be.
wow, you must be older than me then.
No, not really, but sure.
Yeah, because I go back to the early days of the New Life Expo. So anyway, um, I've seen interviews with you talking about the homeopathy and how much we need to use it all the time. And
Well, these
yeah,
doses, don't require frequent repetition. So it's not all the time. If you're taking a homeopathic remedy daily, you're not doing something right.
but even if you take it once a month, you're on it all the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. One dose a month. Yeah, can last for a long time. That's right.
Right, right.
And that
So
that's why it's so interesting that skeptics of homeopathy say that homeopathic medicines are placebos. Well, you see, I see patients daily that have chronic conditions. And the worst way to try and initiate a placebo response is to give 1 or 2 doses per month. That's what I do. I give 1 or 2 doses per month. That is a really stupid way if these are placebos because it's not going to last very
yeah,
long.
yeah,
So, I
you'll
mean,
lose
that
your
throws the
attitude.
placebo argument out the door, out the door. Goodbye.
Right. Well, homeopathy has such a long, great history. I sometimes I'll visit Philadelphia and I'll see this big hospital called Hahnemann Hospital, and I'll realize that probably there are no doctors in the hospital who have any idea why it's called Hahnemann Hospital.
Right. Yeah,
But
and in Washington, D.C., one of the great monuments in a big intersection is a monument to Samuel Hahnemann. It was dedicated in 1900. President McKinley was one of the people. The chairperson of the day was the Attorney General, and the John Philip Sousa band played on that day.
wow, they didn't have an FDA in those days.
Well, it's sort of interesting. The FDA was created in 1906, but it
Really?
wasn't until 1938 that the New York senator created the Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act of 1938. And that empowered the FDA. And that senator from New York happened to be a homeopathic physician.
Oh my gosh.
His name was Royal Copeland. He was previously the mayor of Ann Arbor. Then he moved to New York City because he got asked to be the head of the New York Homeopathic um, Medical School and hospital. And then he got asked to be the health commissioner of New York. And that was during the flu epidemic of 1918. And New York City had the best results from treating the flu, had the least deaths of any major American city under
Wow.
his guidance. And then FDR became his campaign manager, and he served 3 terms as senator, and he wanted to empower the FDA because he was concerned about drugs not being regulated adequately. But homeopathic drugs got incorporated and recognized as drugs in America, and because they're so safe, it wasn't a problem having them regulated. We needed more regulation of the conventional drug industry, and that's what Dr. Royal Copeland, former a homeopathic physician, and even ophthalmologist, homeopathic ophthalmologist, and then 3 days after the law that he sponsored got signed into law, he passed away. So it's like he did his deed. He provided substance and sustainability for homeopathy, and then he departed this world. What a way to go!
Well, but then again, after he was gone,
Oh yeah,
the
yeah,
walls
yeah,
came
yeah.
tumbling down.
Well,
And
Bobby
talk.
Kennedy's analysis is right on. And the FDA is conflicted because of so many conflicts of interest. And I'm an appreciator of what Bobby has done and is continuing to do. And
Right.
more is coming. More is coming,
Well,
definitely.
he needed to put a big stop sign up for what the FDA was saying about homeopathy.
Right. About
They were
everything,
they were
actually.
so frightened. How imagine taking arsenic? It'll kill you.
Yeah, 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 but not in the doses.
Well, arsenicum
The dose is
is
everything.
different.
The bottom line is homeopathy has always been the leading competitor to conventional medicine. And that's why the AMA very systematically has sought to suppress it. In fact, just this week, I wrote a new article that got published in a major medical journal. And it's about J.D. Rockefeller, who had a 50-year-long love affair with homeopathy. He only sought homeopathic care, and he wanted half of his money to go to homeopathic institutions. But in the end, in the 20th century, not a single cent went. And so, if people want to read this article, if you were to just Google my name, Dana Ullman, Ullman, and the name JD Rockefeller, and if you want to also put in AMA, because this is some stories about how the AMA got started and what they did to attack, suppress, and marginalize homeopathy. And then I get into detail about the Flexner Report, which is the famous report in 1910. And not all of the people that you and I know that have been critics of the Flexner report accurately about it. But I do. This is, like I said, published in a major medical journal. There's like 150 references. I'm really proud of the scholarship that I devoted to it. And I'm even proud to say that a modern day Rockefeller helped fund my research to help make this into a reality.
I love that.
So, so she's an appreciator of homeopathy, and um, she wanted the correct information to go out. And I think the Rockefeller family has some karma to deal with because JD made some serious mistakes in not giving any money to homeopathic institutions.
Well, was it that he made the mistake, or was it corrupted about him?
It was a lot of corruption there. There was a lot of corruption. In fact, what's amazing is that his business advisor and his head of philanthropies was a man named Frederick T. Gates. So I know people are going to go crazy with that one, but there's no known relationship between any other Gates. I want to make that clear. But I just find great humor, and this is part of the Shakespearean drama of everyday life, isn't it?
Yeah,
Um,
life is full of its coincidences that are more than coincidences.
but by the way, one fact that I want to clarify or tell people about that I get into detail of this book is I describe how the AMA got rich and powerful. And it's a short and amazing story. But in 1899, the AMA was doing really poorly. There were only 8,000 members of the organization. And they ended up getting a new general secretary, which is the head of the AMA. And then he takes the role as the editor of the journal of the AMA, and he decides to set up guidelines for who can advertise in the journal. And he created this seal of approval. If you would get the seal of approval, then you would be able to advertise. And to get the seal of approval, you had to do two things. One, you had to say what was in your drug, no secret formulas. And that's the good news. And he wrapped this whole thing around, great, we're going to have transparency. And who could be against that, right? But
Sure.
the second thing that wasn't well known was you also had to agree to advertise in every local, regional, and national AMA publication, which means you had to give the AMA a lot of money, a lot of money. And so, believe it or not, 10 years later, the AMA no longer has 8,000 members. Now they have 70,000 members.
That's quite small, actually.
No, well, from 8,000 to 70,000.
No, but in terms of how many doctors there
Oh,
are in this
in
country.
1910 numbers, that's impressive.
Yeah, oh no,
In
oh yeah,
fact,
no, in those days, sure. But how big are
oh
they
yeah,
now? How many
yeah.
members
In
do they
fact, the
have today?
irony is in 1900, the ad revenue was only 35,000, and by 1910, it was like 150,000. So it
Hmm.
it quadrupled. But you mean
Yeah.
150,000? That doesn't seem like much. But remember, that's in
No,
1910 money.
yeah, that's worth
1910.
millions.
So ultimately, Rockefeller in the first 4 decades of the 20th century gave away $1 billion.
Hmm. Wow.
He was the first billionaire in America, and he was the first to give away $1 billion.
Uh-huh.
And he wanted half of his money to go to homeopathic institutions, but not a single cent went.
And the
And this, if you want to read the
homeopathic,
story, please look up my article. I'm really proud of it. It's in this medical journal that has a really wonderful and very curious name, and it's called Curious, but it's spelled Cureus, Cure
hmm,
Us, but it's
yeah,
pronounced Curious.
I love it.
And I'm really proud. It's open access. You don't have to be a subscriber. And if you do read it, go to that website. They allow people to rank or rate the article. Please, review my article and read it and then review it. I would love that. Appreciate it. And share
Oh,
it. Please share it.
sure. Sounds great. So these homeopathic institutions, since they didn't get funded, how many still exist?
Well, have to remember that at the time, Boston University was a homeopathic medical school. Um, Ohio State had a homeopathic department. New York Medical College used to be called New York Homeopathic Medical College. Hahnemann in Philadelphia, of course, was University of Minnesota, University of Iowa. Even the University of Iowa had a department of homeopathic medicine. And
Mhm.
so, at University of Michigan, what am I talking about? University of Michigan had a whole department of homeopathic medicine. So those all exist, but they don't teach homeopathy anymore. But the bottom line, actually, over the last 10 years, is virtually every medical school in America has a course in alternative medicine. And homeopathy ultimately is one of the subjects that's in under that. But I call that the ghetto, the educational ghetto. Put it in the big lump of alternative therapies where homeopathy is what I call nanopharmacology. And as such, it is on the cutting edge of pharmacology. And if you're interested, I'll tell you something about some new research on homeopathy, new meaning 2012. But let me tell you about it because it helps explain how homeopathic medicines may work.
Okay, great.
This was a study published in a journal called Laying Mirror. And I'm sure very few people have heard of this journal, but it's published by the American Chemistry Society. So, needless to say, this is not a homeopathic organization. Anyway, a group of researchers in India at the most respected scientific institution in India called the IIT, the India Institute of Technology. They conducted a study on 6 different homeopathic medicines and they diluted each of these 6 medicines, and they're all metals. They're gold, silver, copper, tin, zinc, and platinum. And they diluted 1 to 100 6 times, 30 times, and 200 times. And present laws of physics and chemistry tell us that once you dilute a substance 1 to 100 just 12 times, you shouldn't have any of the remaining molecules left. And so here's where skeptics say there's nothing in these medicines. Despite the fact, by the way, I'll just say one tangent here, but homeopathy became popular in the 19th century for one reason more than any other. And that was the incredible results that homeopaths got during the different infectious disease epidemics of the 19th century. I'm talking about cholera, scarlet fever, yellow fever, typhoid fever, these serious diseases for which a placebo is not going to be very helpful. And yet, in fact, not only did four homeopathic doctors get the highest award that a pope can give to a non-clergy person, the pope, different popes gave these awards because these homeopathic doctors successfully treated so many people, hundreds and thousands of people who were suffering from these infectious disease epidemics. So, homeopathy got its greatest results in treating these serious infectious diseases.
I
And
remember during the recent pandemic that I was hearing that it would be great to keep arsenicum on hand. And
arsenicum is one of our great remedies, and that's the one remedy also that the late Queen of England was known to carry in her purse because besides being for certain infections, it's a leading remedy for food poisoning. But arsenicum was a great remedy that we use both in the prevention and treatment of people with COVID. But when I say it's not for COVID, it's for people with COVID. And so it's not for the disease, it's for the person with the disease. And it's not the only
Mhm.
remedy. We use a whole variety of remedies, but if you don't know what else to do, the 30C of arsenicum is a reasonable one to consider.
Right,
But
and
let
I
me
don't
get back
think,
to this
but I don't
study.
think of homeopathy as treating labels of diseases so much as
That's right.
treating the way we respond to them.
Yeah, I'd like to say that homeopathy isn't for diseases, it's for syndromes of which
Right.
the disease is a part. Because you will have your own COVID syndrome, and I'll have a different set of symptoms
Right.
of my COVID syndrome. But back to this study published in this journal published by the American Chemistry Society. So they diluted these six different metals, 1 to 10, 1 to 100, 6, 30, and 200 times. And then they used three different types of spectroscopy to measure the nanoparticles that remained in the water. And they were able to do so.
Hmm.
And they went on to explain how and why. So what happens is in homeopathy, we always use the highest grade water in the world. It's called pharmaceutical grade water, and that goes through a distillation process twice. So it's distilled once and distilled twice, and
Well,
that
I
and
use John Ellis water, which is distilled about 40 times.
well, there you go. I mean that's all great, but the pharmaceutical grade water is considered that if by two distillations.
Right.
But the point is they also would put the water in glass because they thought that glass was inert. But as it turns out, it isn't, and nothing really is, because when you put uh, this distilled water, double distilled water, in a test tube, and then you put a plant, mineral, animal, or chemical in it to make it into a medicine, and then they shake it vigorously using these machines to shake it 40 times. That substance blanches against the side walls of that test tube, and 6 parts per million of silica fragments fall out into the water.
That's a lot.
Well, the thing is, of course, it's not toxic at all. I mean, it's such a small silica fragment, your body filtrates it. That's not the problem. But the point is, and this is the important point, those silica fragments, also called silica chips that fall off the glass wall, becomes a a um, a means by which whatever you're making into the medicine, because of the turbulence in the water and because of the bubbles that get created from this vigorous shaking, because of the bubbles, and this is a real term, nanobubbles, they bring
Mhm.
oxygen down into the water and they increase the water pressure by a substantial amount. So whatever is being made into a medicine will be pushed into the silica fragments in the water.
And what
Then
does
when
that
you dump
do?
then when you dump out 99% of the water, the fragments cling to the glass walls.
Hmm.
And so then you dilute them again and shake it 40 times. And this turbulence also creates this whirlwind of water around each of the silica fragments. And when you have the motion of water around a material thing, it creates a slight magnetic charge. And that magnetic charge will be a super low level that will have no effect at all, except on those people who happen to be hypersensitive to that particular substance. And that person that will be hypersensitive to that substance is if the toxicology of that substance is similar to their symptomology. So that is where we call the law of similars. Law of
Hmm.
similars is a homeopathic medicine will have a healing effect if that substance's toxicology matches the sick person's symptoms.
Right. So they'd be
And
getting the remedy anyway, because
well, no,
it's
they'd be getting the remedy. Well, if they take the remedy, um, so arsenic or what or bee venom. I love bee venom. That's a good example because people know that bee venom causes burning, stinging, and swelling and redness.
right.
And so if you have some symptoms of hives or some symptoms of a tonsillitis where you want to suck on a popsicle or an ice cube, and that's the other thing about bee venom is that burning, stinging, swelling, and redness feels worse if you get near heat, but feels better when you get some cold application. So if a person is sucking, has that sore throat, has the tonsillitis, and sucks on ice cubes because it feels good, that's a good indication for using homeopathic doses of bee venom, which the Latin name is apis, A-P-I-S.
Oh, I've heard of Apis. That's great.
Oh yeah. Oh no, it's a great medicine. Um, so the bottom line is that skeptics always say these doses are too small to have any effect. And they are hyper small, don't get me wrong, but our body operates on nanodose levels. Our body, a lot of our endocrine system, hormones, and cell signaling neurotransmitters operate at a level that is even smaller than nanodose. And the trick is it's not as though just any nanodose will be effective. It's a nanodose only of that substance whose toxicology happens to match in the sick person's symptomology.
Right.
And our homeopathic texts get into super detail. I mean, if you want to discover any toxicology of any substance, our homeopathic materia medica will help enlighten you to that.
Well, yeah, years ago I had the Materia Medica about 40 years ago, and it confused me a lot because I think it's probably been it's easier to digest nowadays. It's probably uh, you know user more user friendly because there's so many applications
That's
to
right.
look
That's why
at.
I write books to make homeopathy a lot more user friendly. So the
Yeah.
first book I wrote with a physician colleague, Everybody's Guide to Homeopathic Medicines, and that's sold over a 500,000 copies in America, and then it's published in about 8 other languages. My more recent book is a book called The Homeopathic Revolution: Why Famous People and Cultural Heroes Chose Homeopathy. And in that book, it's not a guidebook. Many of my books are guidebooks, and you showed me a book of that you have of mine on homeopathy for children and infants, which I'm
Right.
really proud of that because my father's a pediatrician, so I had to write that book. But
Good.
this book about famous people is amazing because I uncovered the stories of 11 American presidents, 7 different popes, Charles Darwin and J.D. Rockefeller, Beethoven and Tina Turner and Paul McCartney um, and literary greats, sports superstars, um, uh, politicians and peacemakers, women's rights leaders, all the women, the suffragists, the 19th century suffragists were all into homeopathy. And our literary greats from Mark Twain and William James and Louisa May Alcott and Emily Dickinson and Thoreau and Longfellow. I mean, I have great stories about all of them.
It's
Even
amazing how
Bob,
important it is to know all that. Because right now, what I'm feeling is that there needs to be a real groundswell because the public needs it. Because the medical world is not really satisfying people's health. And homeopathy is such a pure uh, answer that it really needs to be much more popular. And I love your voice for it. I think you're doing a great
especially for
job.
chronic disease, people with chronic disease, complex disease, emotional mental disease as a part of it. And by the way, many of us homeopaths see our patients only on Zoom. So, whether you're in New York City or you're in Cucamonga, I see patients all over the world by Zoom. So you can find me at homeopathic.com. You can also find me. I'm really proud of the Substack that I have. So if you do a Google for my name, Dana Ullman, on Substack, uh, I I just came back from Greece where I attended an international homeopathic research conference, and I report about some amazing stories there because the newest body of research that's going to be coming out in the next year is going to be showing how helpful homeopathy is in treating agriculture and treating crops. They're finding better crop yields, better crop nutrition, and does so without pesticides. So homeopathy is going to be at the center of what I'm
Right,
calling the Green Revolution
right,
2.0.
right. I
And
love
believe it or
that.
not, I mean, needless to say, that no one can say that plants are responding to a placebo. Oh yeah, that plant, he just believed that homeopathy was going to work. 'Cause that's a new age plant. It flowers. I mean,
Right.
the flower children. I mean,
But it's also cheap agriculture to use homeopathy.
oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, the whole you won't be needing the fertilizers as much. You won't be needing the pesticides as much. You certainly won't be needing the glyphosate as much. And
This,
so all this is good stuff.
yeah,
All this is good
this
stuff.
is so
And,
wonderful
and
talking with you, and we're really getting to the end of the show. And I'm so fascinated, not only by just by homeopathy, but by your presence in it. And I think you're doing a very important job. And I'm so proud to be able to interview you. So thank you so much.
my pleasure.
Good, I'm glad. And this is Peter Roth, your host of Energy Stew at prn.live. I can be reached at peter at heartriver, Heart river.org. I'd love to hear from you, and thanks so much for listening.